Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Zwift Me Live broadcast of Dig Deep Coaching Grand Tour stage number 14. Again, we are going along with the Tour de France, the critical winning moments, workouts developed by Dig Deep Coaching. I'm joined by Stephen Gallagher from Dig Deep Coaching. Welcome to the broadcast, Stephen, coming over there from Ireland. We also have a special guest today that we want to welcome to the broadcast as well. Two-time gold medalist, as well as two-time Commonwealth Games champion and two-time world champion, Graham Brown. Want to welcome him definitely to the broadcast as well. Graham, good to have you here. Stephen, good to have you guys here. And I think it's morning to you in Ireland, middle of the night to me,
yep.
And afternoon to you over in Australia. I believe it's Australia, Graham?
Yeah, that's it. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, good to have you guys here. Great to have you guys here. So why don't we, first things first, usually when we introduced the broadcast, let's talk a little bit about what's going on today. What is in front of us here? We obviously are on the massive multiplayer online game and training tool, which is Zwift, replicating the efforts that are taking place for each stage of the Tour de France. Stephen, you want to talk a little bit about what is going on today on the workout so that the viewers have an understanding of what these athletes are experiencing as they try to replicate what's happening in the Tour today. And let's take a look at the stage as well a little bit.
Yeah, today it's a really hard day, both for the actual guys doing the Tour de France today's stage, but also in our workout. So I was just saying to Nathan there before broadcast that probably today is going to be one of the hardest stages for us regarding in this year's Tour de France. So it's really lumpy. You'll see in the stage today whenever you watch it. It's a very hard transition stage. So it's going through a lot of very rolling terrain, hilly terrain. There's deceivingly long climbs in today's stage. There's one climb today that's just over 9 kilometers long. We also have, a really, really difficult finish as well. So very steep climb at the finish. It finishes not at the top, it finishes over the top. So we have about 1.5 kilometers over the top. But basically from about, kilometer 70, 75 in today's stage, there's very little let up at all. So from there, right the whole way to the finish at kilometer 186, it's a really hard day. So, again, we're here to replicate as much as we can the actual route and the difficulties that the riders are going to be facing. So with that in mind, we're looking at starting into quite a long climb. So we're going to mimic the Col de Croix de Berthel, which is the longest climb of today's stage. So we're going to do that. You see it, it's 9.1 kilometers long. So the Strava on that is just about 26 minutes. So we have taken that Strava time. We're going to do 70% of that Strava time. We've also looked at obviously the gradients of that as well. So we're changing up our cadences. It gets steeper at the top. So you'll be thankful that we're not going too much into our red at that point. We're not going really far into our limits at that point, but it is quite steep at the top, so we're doing a bit of low cadence work. Then we're going to have a bit of recovery for us between that and the finish climb. Unfortunately for the riders, they won't have much recovery. And then we're going into this really difficult Côte de la Croix Nieve, which is just right at the finish, and it's going to be totally decisive in today's stage. And it's also going to be really difficult for us to do. So what I've done is I've looked at a rider called Anthony Perez from Cofidis, who I believe is maybe in the Tour this year, but he actually won a race on this climb last year, a race in September time called Landac-Roussillon, a race in France. And so he was fortunate enough to put his Strava up with his power. So I've pretty much mimicked exactly his effort whenever he attacked on this climb to ride away a solo over the top and going down into the finish. So what we're doing is we're going to mimic the exact duration, which is about 9 minutes of a climb. But we've broken that down into 4 segments. So, hard at the bottom, his attack in the bottom third, trying to hold on, and also the gradients that he obviously hit and what the riders are hitting. So we're changing that up for our cadence, and then going over the top and having a long hard effort just at the end as well. So it's a really hard day. Lots of changes in cadence and intensity. So we're going to need to be on the ball. So.
And so being a little bit of a shorter, well, not shorter stage, but shorter climbs, it seems that because of that, the replication of the intensities can, obviously we're doing about an hour workout or so. We can replicate the intensities a little bit closer rather than trying to, I mean, before we were doing just one climb, right? This time we're kind of like, let's throw a few different things at the riders today throughout the stage, it sounds like. So that's pretty cool. You know, another thing we usually want to chat about is the warm-ups. And that was something that you were interested in interacting a little bit with Graham about. You know, how do these we were talking about a bunch about warm-ups yesterday, and we had a bunch of questions actually from social media actually, and this was a question that came up yesterday from Andy Harrison, and this isn't the exact question actually, as he was chatting about Dan Martin maybe winning today's stage, but if you want to interact, you want to ask any questions of myself, Graham, Steven, you want to get interactive with the program here, go ahead and do so. But Graham, what kind of warm-ups are specific? You know, that's what we're in the middle of with today's workout at this point. What are you up to usually as a bread and butter warm up comparatively to what we got going on in the and maybe Steven can share a little bit about, well, what are we doing right now for warm ups, and then how does that compare to what you guys do?
Yeah,
well, the warm up today. Sorry, go ahead, Graham.
You're right. There you go, Steven. You're right.
So yeah, just to let you know, Graham, the warm up we're doing today is pretty standard of what we've been doing over the last couple of days. The last really 2 weeks is, it's kind of general 5 minute, easy riding, very much in the sort of, low intensity. And then we just do about 3 or 4 high cadence, 30-second activation efforts where we're not straining the body too much in the sense of, putting lots of force on it. But we're, just trying to get the cadence going to bring the heart rate up slightly, bring a wee bit of sweat rate up as well. And, to get that body going. So, but that's obviously the sense of we're not always going full bore into the workout. There's a bit of time gradual, today with 5 minutes and then 7 minutes going into it. But what is interesting for a lot of people is maybe whenever they're going into, for example, a Zwift race where you have to be on the game from the start, is there any tips of maybe what you did whenever you were going for your Olympic gold medals or whatever that may be? Is there anything that specific that you done or you could share with all the people here?
Yeah, so the warm-up that I did for many years, but it was quite long, which is kind of strange when you're only racing for 4 minutes or less than 4 minutes. So it took about 45 minutes, which worked out kind of well with my warm-up CD because it was exactly the right length. But, so now they've changed it and it's approximately 17 minutes. That was like a scientific approach that the AIS or the national program went after, and it was actually fairly simple. It was 5 minutes at 60%, 5 minutes at 70% of your heart rate, 60%, 70%, and 80%. So in the third lot of 5 minutes was only actually 4 minutes at 80%, and then the last minute you went from 80 through to 100%. Then you had a minute 45 break, and then a 15-second biggest gear that you had, sort of low cadence standing start. So another minute 45, and then another 15-second standing start effort. And that was just to load the muscles up, make sure they got full of lactate. And then you actually only had 1 minute, then you're off the bike and you just sit there. So it seems really strange. It goes against everything that, people have probably learnt, to roll the lactate out, and you don't want to start with lactate and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But the idea was to keep that lactate in your legs, to keep all your capillaries, etc., open. So then when you fire the gun in the team's pursuit, boom, you're ready to go. And it seemed to work. So the idea, we did many times lactate testing at the end of that, and then at the end of efforts. And quite often our lactate was higher after the warm up than it was after the effort.
Really, that's really interesting. And that's yeah, I mean, again, it's quite different to, I suppose, conventional thinking in the sense of, trying to obviously keep the lactate down or trying to, minimize the muscular strain that you would have in it. But I would assume this is quite relevant or quite specific to 4-minute efforts, that sort of intensity where, you need to have that capillaries open, right from that, the first 20, 30 seconds of a team pursuit is probably the most critical 20, 30 seconds potentially of the actual ride. So I'm assuming you need to have that completely open. And that's really interesting actually for people that maybe can even, I would apply that, potential ethos to somebody doing a hill climb.
Well, even. Yeah, I mean,
can I jump in here?
An hour long with
quick, guys. I want to just throw in that it seems like the common thread that we're getting into is that the shorter and higher the intensity of the effort, the longer the warm up needs to be, to really get things moving. At least it seems like that's what you're aiming at, because the warm up, at least to really get things to the place where, at least when I would start, I needed to know that when I was done with my warm up, I needed to feel like I needed to feel when I was racing. You know what I mean? I need to, or at least I want to feel how I want to feel good when I'm racing. Does that make sense? It took me so long to start feeling good. So you get to that spot before you actually get started, so that if it's a short race, bam, you're already there. And you want it to end as close to the start as possible. Now, give me feedback if I'm wrong on that, but it sounds like, that was a longer warm-up. You're talking 45 minutes now. They've shortened it up, though, you're saying, Graham, to maybe some newer findings?
That was my personal... the 45-minute one was more my personal warm-up that I used to do. That was before it got scientific in
gotcha.
In cycling, I guess. So it was quite long, and, people were for against it. It worked for me. I liked it. It didn't really, I had to ride the bike. But yeah, towards the end, they got a bit more science behind it. Obviously this is more than 10 years ago now. So a bit more science, and that's how, that's the sport develops. It's all about science, of course. But yeah, we would stop that effort 15 minutes before the start as well of the race. So you got quite a high intense effort, and then 15 minutes of basically nothing, then you race. So it's all nothing what anyone you would, a normal person would probably go, we've not learned anything like that before. But it works, but for a shorter effort. If you're going to do a 5-hour road race, it's not going to help you. It's going to just fatigue you towards the end.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really interesting, actually. And do you know, is that sort of warm-up method still being used by the Australian Institute of Sport or the current sort of pursuit riders or whatever? Do you know if that similar sort of warm-up technique is being used?
I know it's definitely similar. I don't know exactly what it is. It might take me a few phone calls to find that out. But, yeah, it's definitely somewhat similar to the last time that, I'd spoken to someone about it.
Let's jump into a little bit about, we're starting to get into the bread and butter work. It looks a little bit more of it, at least. We're getting past the warm-up. We're getting into a 7-minute effort here. For me, it'd be about 2:40. Looks like a tempo ride. First, let's chat, Stephen. You designed this workout, so where are we at in this workout compared to the stage and the tour? And then let's start chatting about, maybe what do we think is going to happen today? Where are things at? How are riders feeling? Some of you guys have some inside information and direct contact with some of these riders. So, where do you think things are going for stage 14? We were talking about being one of the hardest stages of the tour, and let's talk about why and how it replicates what we're replicating right now.
So, right at this point in time, we're just kicking off the stage basically. So this is us riding in toward that first climb of the Col de Croix Berthel. So we're getting about 5 minutes of steady riding in zone 2 just before we hit the bottom of that climb. So sitting in the peloton, we're trying to keep our powder dry for a really, really intense last part of the stage. So yeah, this is just the ride in, and then this next step up where you go into this next 7 minutes at 80%, and then that 10 minutes at 95% at 75 RPM. We're dropping the RPM quite down. Is that long climb But what we are doing during that long climb is just sort of making sure that we're trying to take it at a steady tempo, so there's not any accelerations at that point. So you can see here they're just starting the first climb of the day. So again, it's a gradual move into it, very different to what you will be doing later on, where it's going to be very explosive at the bottom. It's shorter as well. So we're 7 minutes at 80%, then we're going up to 10 minutes at 95%, dropping our cadence down to 75 RPM to mimic as well the steepness, the gradient of the climb of that particular of the hill that the riders are going on. So it's the
and have you guys, either of you guys, raced or had any experience? Col de, says it right on the screen. Col de Berthel?
Yeah, that's it. So you're French. Yeah, he's destroyed the language, by the way, Graham, over the last 2 weeks. So he's.
So I broadcast a lot of races for a Canadian crowd too. That is from around 2 p.m. my time. It's one of the most popular, and there's the French Canadians. They're really passionate about Zwifting. There's a sector of them, and man, do they get on me. They just lambast me every time I try to pronounce the name. So it's a running joke for sure on ZCL broadcast. That's for sure. But why don't you guys? I'd love to see you guys.
Translation.
What's that? Say one more time, Graham.
That's just the English translation.
There we go. That's a great. I like that.
Don't stick up for him.
I like that excuse. Let's get you guys talking a little bit about this. Do you guys have any experience with this climb at all, or what do you guys know about this specific stage and why it might be a very difficult one?
Well, I'll maybe this sort of a terrain. I spent a couple of years living not far from this part of the world and spent quite a long time racing on similar terrain, really, really hard roads. If it's hot, I'm not sure, I haven't looked at the temperature today, but this is getting into some of the warmest places geographically in France. So, a lot of times if you see the peak temperatures or the hottest locations in France during the summertime, it's in around this area, because it's getting from the Massif Central going towards the Pyrenees. It's in that sort of basin, and it's just like an oven. So if it's hot today, it has been hot, it's going to play a big impact on the riders, which I truly believe the heat has made a real big impact on the riders to date, for the guys that have been, has been really difficult to recover from. Real rolling terrain, can be heavy roads too. Sometimes the road surface in around this part of France is quite different to the smooth alpine climbs that they might see. So it's really, really difficult stage. But Graham, you've done Grand Tours, you've won 20 odd UCI races, as well as your gold medals and whatnot. I'm starting to give you a bit of a big head here, but just to let everybody know that you have experience across all types of terrain. You were predominantly a sprinter, a team sprinter, or one of the core lead out men later on in your career for the guys going for wins and whatnot. So maybe give us a bit of insight into how the sprinters would be trying to get through today, and also B, maybe how you feel this stage is going to go when we look at the teams and the compositions of the GC, and how you feel that's going to go.
Yeah, well, as a sprinter, you'd have to look at the stage, and you need to give yourself a marker of, I need to make it to this point at least to be able to make the time limit. Now, there's obviously the sprinters that are in the race now are guys that climb really well because they're still in the race. You've got Demar, Colbrelli, Sagan, of course, and Christophe. And if you had the guys that were eliminated, like the Groenewegen and the Cavendish, for example, you would have to go, all right, at what point in this stage do I need to make it with the peloton to be able to make the time cut? So obviously the deeper you go into the stage, the more chance you've got. If you make it to the base of the last climb, which in this instance they probably wouldn't, but as an example, if you made it to the base of the last climb, you could basically walk up the last climb and then still make the time limit.
Yeah.
So that's what the way a sprinter would be looking today. That's their mentality, and go, okay, well, if I was looking at this, obviously your legs tell a different story when you're at the race. If I got myself to the start of the climb that you guys are riding up now, Col de la Croix de Berthel, however you say it, if you got to the base of that, I'd be pretty happy with the day. If I could get up part of that climb past this Vialis, then I think it's a bit of a win. You got, you know, 3 peaks to get over, descent down, and then the final climb. So, yeah, that's the way you would have to look at it as a sprinter. I did have a look at some betting on today, and I noticed that Sagan has the same odds as Chris Froome, which I found quite strange. So, if I look at I know Sagan climbs quite well, but he's no Froome. But, yeah, I'm quite interested. I'm really looking forward to watching the stage tonight, actually. You know, that steep gradient, there's no, you know, sitting on or, you know, following, obviously following teammates is a bit of a mental thing as well. But it eliminates a bit of a team issue, and it could be a bit mano a mano, as they would say, on the final climb. Being only 3K as well, so it gives an opportunity to, you know, have a big crack at the bottom and go, well, okay, it's 3K. That's a long way, of course, but it's 3K, not 30K or 13K. Yeah. So I think you'll see a lot of fireworks at the bottom of the climb, and try, you know, once you get to that top, it's, you know, it's only 1.5K to go, and just hang on. If you've got a gap, just hang on.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting because, you know, obviously we have sort of mimicked the stage to almost reflect that you can go deep at the bottom and try and hold on. I mean, that's what's difficult about, I feel, today's workout that the guys are doing here, compared to what we've done in the last, you know, 4 or 5 days, where we've been doing a lot of real prolonged threshold efforts, tempo efforts, you know, mimicking, you know, the sort of drawn out efforts that the guys are doing in the tour. But today is, you know, really explosive, and especially in a climb like it's 3 kilometers long, you can take a risk. You can take a risk and go, okay, well, I can dig in deep here. I know I'm not, you know, it's not like I say, a 10, 15 kilometer climb where, you know, if you go too deep too early, you're in, you know, you're in big difficulties later on. But for this, there's, you know, you can obviously sort of take them risks, and that's why, you know, early on this climb, like the guys are on now, you know, you can see we're dropping down. Or we're going up to, you know, 285 watts for you, Nathan, which is, you know, going up to sort of 80%. Then we're going up to nearly, you know, 95, 100% of your threshold after. But you know, so it's a long, drawn out effort here to make sure that we're fresh enough to be able to hit that later on. And hopefully, I'd say that's what a lot of the guys are trying to do. Certainly, the sprinters, they're wanting to not dig in so deep that they're, you know, they're getting far enough into the stage before they start using all their bullets more or less to hang on. Because if you get dropped, I think we talked about this yesterday, Nathan, if, you know, you get dropped too early on this stage, the possibility of finishing outside the time cut is really, you know, is really prominent. There's a good chance of finishing outside the time cut. If you're out the back on this first climb today, you're really bad legs. You know, it's a hard one, so it's going to be a hard one.
Yeah, I'd love to hear Graham on that, on like how much was that thought about a ton? Because, okay, so this year we've seen a lot of sprinters that we've never seen drop out before. Like, what is going on? And do you have any like opinion about where things are at with the sprinters this year and why we've seen so many more drop out? Like, what were you thinking when you saw that happen? Being a sprinter that's raced amongst this kind of a crowd, when you looked at the tour this year and the reasons why, we've been pointing a lot at the cobbles, followed directly up by 3 days in the Alps. Is it having a couple of shorter stages that the time gap needed to be smaller? Like, what are you thinking there, Graham, when you saw this happening with the major names in sprinting getting pulled?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'd probably need to say, it's not being soft, and it's not because they haven't climbed enough. You know, I've read a lot about that in social media.
That's a good point.
That it's not that they're soft. It's not that they don't train hard enough. Mark Cavendish is probably one of the most committed bike riders, and as much as Froome is, you know, it's just their different makeups. But possibly, you know, it's obviously the sport now. Over the last, well, let's say 20 years, it's definitely got more business orientated. It's not that you go out. So in the past, let's say like Cipollini days, you'd have, you know, a bit of a procession and, okay, everyone easy. Today, you know, we're going to have a sprint. And, you know, yeah, you call it what you will, but it was a bit more of the old school piano sessions and a bit easier occasionally. It was faster at the end. And then, yeah, so then you've got the shorter stages as well. So the shorter stages are always going to be an issue. It's a sprinter's worst nightmare. the 65K stage coming up is obviously the shorter the stage, the shorter the time limit. So if you can, if you possibly as an organizer, if you're adding short stages in, you might think, oh, it's short, everyone just, it's fresh in, etc. But I think in that 65K stage, you've got 3 climbs. So for a sprinter, it's absolute nightmare. You look at that and go, well, you're going to have to go 100% the whole way anyway. And that's something that a lot of people that watch the racing don't understand as well about a sprinter. Sprint day, they're going 100%. Mountain day, they're going 100%.
100%.
Climbers taking it easier. Okay, they've got the added stress of losing time, but in reality, it's easier. Whereas they can ride through 5 mountains and then have to go full gas on the last one. So for them, it's a lot easier to get through a stage than a sprinter would be, where a sprinter would be at 100% every day, day in, day out. It's on.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead, Graham.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean,
I forgot what I was going to say now.
Yeah, this shorter stage actually is a really good point in the sense of the possibility of being put outside the time limit. That's going to be the biggest stage with the potential to have lots of guys outside the time cut, because obviously the shorter the stage, the shorter the time. The riders are going to go full biscuit from the start. So as you said, what is the percentage? Is it 15%, something like that? 20%. I'm not sure what
the
average
time. Speed.
An average speed. It's going to be really difficult. Even a good climber, like let's say Christoph, a climber in the sense of being a sprinter. I mean, he's going to struggle. He's going to struggle on a day like that to get through if they go absolutely full tilt from the start. So and hopefully that won't be the case, and there's a bit of leniency if it is that, because we can't go to Paris with having Chris Froome sprinting Bardet. That would just be ridiculous. So
kind of funny though.
It would. It'd be kind of funny. So
okay, we are finishing up. It looks like the first climb coming into the end of this here. About 3 minutes to go on this. 285 on the end of this climb, though. Here, you want to chat a little bit about that, Stephen? Like, what's the situation here with the riders? Why are we having this kick at the end here, and what are we simulating here? And again, this is a direct. Okay, are we at that point yet, where we're at the direct copy?
We're
the replication of what Perez did on this course, or are we?
No, we're only using Perez's data from the very last climb. Okay, so this here is from the Strava. It was actually by the look of Strava anyway. It was a local amateur rider who has the Strava, or did have it before the pros go for it today. I don't know if he'll have it after today's stage. But so on this here one, I've taken the duration of the climb, and I've taken how that particular person probably rode it. Obviously, him being a little more unknown, it was hard to get the percentage of FTP or what I would estimate it at. But what I did look at is obviously the gradient. So on this here, that's why, the RPM is going down to 75 RPM on this last part of this climb. So this last 10 minutes, which again is going to give us a little bit more muscular fatigue before going into this, really last big explosive effort. What I will say to riders is, be quite disciplined on this 10-minute section here. Don't, even if you're feeling all right, I know it's only 95% or 100% of your FTP, you might feeling a little, little jittery that you want to go a bit harder. I would certainly be disciplined, because this last climb, you need to have all your weapons ready for it, because it is really, really difficult. And once you're on that 75 RPM, one of the real important aspects of that is trying to control your upper body movement, trying to make sure that you engage your core, your hips, your glutes. That rocking motion that a lot of people see whenever they're on the bike and low cadence, that upper body movement is just a complete waste of energy. So, on this here, try and be as disciplined as you can. Again, all these wee bits save that body's energy for really being able to explode on that last climb, because on this last climb you're going to have to be getting out of the saddle, you're going to have to be changing your body position and composition quite a bit. So just keep focused on that.
Gotcha. And experience with these kind of situations. Are there any like crucial moments in your career, Graham, that you were racing in a specific situation like this, where you found yourself like any story? Like, we'd love to hear any stories. Like what kind of experiences have you had where like you were able to make it and it was victorious, or maybe like, man, that was just a rough day, and you're looking back going, I just want that day to go away because it was like off the back. And
it's just about every stage I rode at the
about every stage. I don't know. I got some pictures. I got some cool pictures here. It looks like some stages went pretty well, but it looks like that was mainly on the track here. I saw one I thought with Cipollini though, leading things out.
Yeah, that was the first stage I ever did in the Giro. I got second to
really?
Cipo.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check.
I went pear-shaped
get that picture in here. So, right behind Cipollini's not too bad. Looks like you guys were, but that doesn't sound like it was on a mountain stage like this one. So, any situations where it was like victorious, or it was just always off the back on these situations?
Nah, so basically, any of the Grand Tours that I did, mountain days were just horrendous. You didn't look forward to them at all. It's just how much you could suffer to get to the end and do it all again the next day. But I do have some vivid recollections of like stage 20 in the Giro, and we just went over every mountain there possibly was, it felt like. And it's just trying to follow the wheel, and just legs do not work. There's just nothing. There's just the worst possible feeling, and you're trying to follow a wheel and you go, okay, normally I could just follow a wheel. It's fast, it's 50 odd, whatever. But normally you can just follow, but not 20 days in. That's just holding the wheel on the flat leading into the climb. That was when I realized that it's going to be a long day. And that was like 1K into the stage. And I got through, but get through the stage, got in the team bus and just went, I just want to die right now. And I literally slept in the back of the bus on a wooden bench that we had where the showers were until we got to the hotel, and then just ate pizza or something, I think.
Just eat.
And the last,
it sounds like is like what you're doing a lot of times at these. How many Grand Tours have you participated in, out of curiosity?
11 or 12 maybe.
Whew. That's a lot.
Something at 10. I think I did 9 or 10 Euros and then a Volta or something along those lines. Just
gotcha.
Try to delete those sort of memories from my mind actually. There's another one from the Volta when it was just 3 degrees in the mountains. That was exceptionally amusing. But I was lucky enough to be in the break that day, so I had a 12-minute head start before we even hit 3 degrees at the top of the first climb. Quite fun. Not. So, I was in the break that day. That was okay. So I had a 12-minute head start on the whole peloton before we even started the climb. And then got to the highest point of the Vuelta actually and scored points. That hasn't happened very much. So the highest point of the Vuelta, I got KOM points, and I finished last on that stage. And I had Volker Mollema pushing me on the last climb.
Wait a second. Wait, what? Wait, can you say that one more time, what you just said? You finished
I started the first climb. I started the first climb with 12 minutes lead over the peloton. There was 4 or 5 of us there. A couple of really bad riders like Gilbert and Luis Leon Sanchez.
Really bad rider.
Yeah. And Luis Leon was my teammate at the time at Rabobank.
Okay.
So we had 12.5-minute head start at the start of the first climb, and it was 3 degrees at the top, the highest point of the Vuelta. So I scored points. So I was, I think, 4th over the top maybe. Obviously put on heaps of clothes because descent, climb. And the last climb was pretty horrendous as well, and finished last on the stage. Compliments of Bauke Mollema pushing me. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was a hard day.
Yeah.
Hard day. It rained all day.
Sounds like it.
And then get to the hotel, have a massage, and I'm on the rollers. Like I thought, I've got to spin this out. I just feel really bad. And whilst I was on the rollers, we had to go for doping control. So that made me very happy that we all had to go do blood. The doctor didn't have any idea how to take blood because I'm not sure what he was doing. And then we got to dinner at 10 o'clock at night.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it was an excellent day.
Tour life is much more than just the race. It sounds like there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. Yeah. Like, what are these guys doing? You know, afterwards. It's actually, I just saw a tweet come out from Paul Sherwin. It says, "Ouch! Right now, 3.5 hour transfer done. Arrived in Mende just now. That was 10 minutes ago, or maybe 20 minutes now. Ago now. So I mean, are the transfers really hard on the riders a lot of times? Like, I mean, what was that like in between stages?"
Yeah, I mean, there was always lots of transfers, but I mean, you're in a team bus. It's not like you're sitting in the back of a car with your knees around your ears. So it's comfortable, but it's just long. I've had many times that you get to the hotel at 10, 11 o'clock at night and you need a massage, and a lot of people just skip massages during Grand Tours, which sounds quite insane, really. But all you want to do is eat and get into bed. You have to eat, obviously. And, rest days aren't really ever rest days either. I've done many Grand Tours coming into the rest day. You're flying all night. You get to the hotel, it's like 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's all you want to do is sleep in, but then you get woken at 6 a.m. for a blood test of some description from the UCI. So there is a lot more, obviously, that goes on apart from just the riding. So it's just trying to recover all the time. And that's where I think a team like Sky, for example, I read and watched a bit about the Giro and their meticulous preparation towards food and calorie intake and expenditure and weights and all sorts of little things that, until it gets described to everyone in a very clear manner, nobody understands how important all these little bits are.
Yeah.
Like Froome, that stage in the Giro that he took the jersey, he didn't carry a drink bottle at all because they had soigneurs every 10 minutes up the climb, and they knew exactly how much water he needed and how many carbohydrates to be in that bottle for him to get through to the finish. It's those little things. It's all. I always say it's the 1%ers that make the difference. And you get enough 1%ers, eventually you're at 100, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of 1%, I mean, in the sprints, what do we? I mean, I'm seeing some 1% here. Some of these pictures here. What is that?
That was.
What's that? What's that? One more time.
8. That was 8 centimeters. I won that stage by.
What is going on? What do we got going on here? What is this? What's happening right here in this picture?
This is the stage 1 of the Tour of California in 2007. And it's the sprint for the win with Greg Henderson. I won one stage by 8.
That's Hendy on the right there. Is that right?
Can't you tell it's Hendy? Look at those quads.
We actually, I don't know if you know this, but we've done a lot of workouts actually with Hendy. We've got this right here of me and Hendy doing group workouts actually. So that's hilarious that's actually Hendy. I didn't know it was him on the right hand side there. So 8 centimeters, you're able to grab that. We're gonna have to get both of you on to have some chatter just about this stage. Actually, that would be a lot of fun. Actually,
it's quite interesting. You've got the whole team aspect and the weight. What I was just saying about Froome didn't carry a bidon. So that stage, my teammate at the time, he said, "Do you want me to take your drink bottle up the climb?" I'm like, "Okay, yeah, cool." It's a really solid, I think 3K climb. It was not that far to go. I said, "Yeah, sure, you can take my drink bottle. I won't have to carry it. It's great." Get to the top, he hands me the drink bottle. I had him and Michael Rasmussen actually looking after me, making sure I didn't get dropped. So I was like last wheel on the climb, and I just got over the climb. But I had 2 teammates looking after me, and one carrying my bidon, one making sure I was out of the wind. And then, luckily enough, I pulled off their hard work with the win.
Yeah, if you didn't win, you'd have been in trouble. So you'd have been in trouble. But talking of wins, I think our guys are about to hit the bottom of the climb.
Yeah, I want to chat about that a little bit. I don't want to neglect the climbs itself, the things that we're up to here. So real quick, what are we doing right now, Stephen, as compared to the course that we're looking at? I saw something about us actually starting the Côte Le Croix Neuve.
Yeah, they've already done a big hard attack, basically. So they've done their 45-second lead-in. at just about 100%, and then they've just done 15 seconds at 200%. So it was a big attack. This is just after their big attack. So there was 15 seconds at the bottom again where Perez went really deep to get away, made a big acceleration trying to get on that steep slope at 85 RPM. So now we're sitting at 3 minutes at 110%. So again, it's really hard. So you're right at the bottom level of your VO2. It's been made even more difficult in the fact that you've made it again very top heavy. You've went really deep for that 15 seconds to get away. Then we're doing 3 minutes at 110 at 78 RPM, and then after that the gap is out, and then we're settled down to 5 minutes in around I think it's 90% of your FTP after that. So but again, it gets steeper at the top, so our cadence keeps coming down over that duration. So right now
I thought about doing this, Stephen. I'm really happy. I was actually like, maybe I'll jump on the bike and do this, and I'm good with my 1 hour today. I just went
look at the watts per kilo here, guys. There's guys on 4.7. Well, Nathan, if you were actually riding this, you'd be around 5 watts per kilo at this point. Second idiot 2.7 watts per kilo. This is really hard. So if best advice to the guys here and the girls is focus just on the end of that 3 minutes. Don't think of the next block. Just think of your finish line being at that end 3 minutes, and then reset the mentality going into the next one.
Looks like it's coming down to about
that's it now.
What is this, 90%? 90%?
Yeah, 95? I think it's about 95% now, but our cadence has come down. So aerobically we're going down a zone, but again, you got to make sure you drop that cadence down a wee bit as well. So again, the gradient, you've got the gap, the gradient is still making it very difficult for us to keep going. So we want to keep ramping that up as well, like regarding the cadence. But settle down into this here. Gaps out, we've got to make sure we go over the top a bit steady, and then it's a long drawn out effort at the end. So
I wanted to ask Graham then, cadences, speaking of that, when you got into climbing, were you a grinder, were you a spinner? What was your go-to? Was it kind of whatever feels good at the time? I mean, would you do these kind of workouts too, where you worked on torque specifically? So that's 2 questions. Like, what kind of, cadences were kind of your go-to? Because some people, I mean, it's kind of like across the board at this point, like higher cadence is going to reserve, energy, but you still see people who just go for the grinder, and that's what that's their kind of motto. But what was your go-to, and then and would you work on these kind of workouts where it was low torque?
So in a race, generally I just did whatever I could to get over the climb. When I was really good, I'd probably be riding about 80 or 90, having a good day. But when I started to hang, I don't know, I seemed to climb better when I was last wheeler. So I'd start at the front, do the drift. By the time I got to the back, I knew I had no further to go. And then when I got in real big trouble, then I was grinding. It was just, if I could use my big chainring in a climb, obviously when it's a really steep climb, you just can't. So that, suggests that basically if I could use my big chainring, I was a much happier man. But in general, climbing wasn't really all that fun ever. But, I had some moments where I was climbing well. I even was attacking the other sprinters on the climbs with my team, which is a bit weird to say even now, but I was having a few good days. But I definitely, do those low cadence power efforts. I did that definitely every week, especially in the off season. Yeah, at least 5 by 5 minutes. 50 RPM, just higher power. Target for me at the time, I was targeting around the 400 watt mark, and just concentrate on that pedal action, getting that power, making sure you're using your glutes, as Stephen was saying earlier, keeping your body still, using your glutes, using your core, and just training that low cadence and that power. It was called a strength endurance effort. So for me personally, it worked really well. I felt that it worked really well. To go any longer than that where I live here is a bit not that simple. There are options, but obviously the longer you go, the less power you have to ride, and the shorter the effort, the more power you can ride. And as a sprinter, I wanted to keep focus on a higher power as opposed to a lower power, because you know, I was a sprinter, so I need to still win sprints or lead out the sprints. So it doesn't matter if I get dropped on the climb, if I was leading out, if I got dropped on the climb, because most likely the sprinter would be getting dropped as well. So you had a few different ways to look at it.
Gotcha. So, these riders are about to head into, it looks like, another minute 15. This is going to get them just into, that 95%. Their heart rate should be able to come down to a manageable place, right? So, and then we're going into 2 minutes at 150. Is there a place on this climb that is relaxed?
Yeah, so this is just over the top. So it actually descends down a wee bit over the top of the climb today. You'll see it where it's 1.5 Ks. Right at the top of that descent is probably the time where it's the most gradient down a wee bit, where they can recover a wee slightly. And then we're going into, we're really mimicking the last kilometre then, which is kind of a drag. You'll see the finish today is quite wide as well, coming into the finish line. So it's quite a wide area. I think it's maybe an airfield with a finish over the top, if I can remember. So it's a big it's a big wide area anyway with a finish. So once we do that recovery, we're going into 2 minutes of 90%, then 1 minute and 100%, in 30 seconds at 190%. So this isn't a full out sprint where, what Graham was saying, explosive sprint. This is a slog, because at this point, and you will see it today, if it is coming to a small group, a lot of people aren't going to be able to put out 1,500 watts, 1,400 watts at this. It's going to be a long, drawn out effort. So it's a very different sort of sprint compared to what we have been seeing in the last couple of days. So we're trying to mimic that sort of 30-second long, drawn out effort. So, but it's a gradual sort of 3-minute ramp up into that. Taken in the example of what it would be like in that sort of last kilometre and a half after the guys go over that short descent. We also want to give our guys here a bit of a rest after a very intensive. I'm sure everybody's happy for this. 2 minutes easy now after this hard section. So before we kick off again. So yeah,
we do have a question coming in. Thanks a lot, Andrew. From Andrew here real quick. Andrew AJ Jeans here. Do people who rode track... Now I actually had some questions about this as well. So this is more aimed at Graham. So, but relating track to what we're also doing here today, I mean, obviously really successful, Graham, on a lot of different disciplines. But do people who rode track when they were young tend to have a higher cadence on the road than those who didn't? Interesting, probably because of the fixed gear that they're aiming at there. So I want to relate that a little bit there, Graham.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that is the case. I think track riding or racing any point is good for your sprint, I would say. So you saw Cavendish a few years ago when he was getting ready for the Olympics and then rode the Tour as well. How well he won, a heap of stages that year. And it is a really good... It's good to mix your track with your road, but I don't think specifically you have a higher cadence. I found the more track work that I did, the lower my cadence was actually on the road when I was training. I think it's because your body just switches off and goes, well, no, I've had enough of that. I don't want to do that high cadence anymore. Yeah. But when I say high cadence, in a team's pursuit sense, when we were training for the team's pursuit, was around the 125 mark. So it wasn't like exceptionally high anyway. I mean, it's not a low cadence, but when you're a junior, you're going much higher. And, in the past, when we trained with Charlie Walsh, for example, we'd be training at the 200 plus mark. So nowadays it is, in theory, it sounds weird to say, but 120 is the easier version, sort of.
Yeah. I mean, 100, for a lot of people here, 120 is very high. I mean, like you're saying, 120, 125 is standard. It's high for you, but I mean, we do look at the guys in the Olympics and we see the cadence, and sometimes, that is, you can see that methodology is maybe brought in a wee bit into road cycling, in the sense of guys in time trials are now riding at 100 RPM plus. You look at Froome and these types of guys, they are sitting at 101, 102 as a standard. But I mean, one thing that I've seen, and what we're trying to bring across here to people that are competing in this 3-week Grand Tour, is how important cadence is, how important it is to work, and how important it is to actually focus on this part of your training and your performance, rather than just getting focused on power to weight or wattage. Cadence and your agility to change from one to the next and using it as a tool to progress is really, really important, which I think a lot of times is missed by people. So,
well, the thing I was brought up with, this little quote was "spinners are winners," and every time I felt like I was struggling with my sprint, I'd just revert back and go, "Okay, hang on, spinners are winners. You need to spin more." So I just really make it a big focus on spinning more during the stage, and then saving your legs, but just spinning a higher cadence than you normally would. I always looked at it in a race. If I was coming into a climb, I would try to ride a slightly bigger gear than normal. When I say that, I don't mean 50 RPM. I mean down towards the 80 or 90, and just get my body sort of a bit more in tune with what's about to happen. If I was coming into it, if I knew the sprint was going to be a really fast sprint, or downhill, or whatever the case, if it was going to be a fast sprint, what I'd try to do is spin a little bit more than normal coming into the finish, or during the stage, just to get like I said, get your body
activate
into just get it ready to go. And if it was a slightly uphill finish, then I wouldn't be too concerned about riding that higher cadence during the stage.
That's interesting. Actually, just trying to get the muscle memory or mentality or whatever, your legs ready for what's coming up, even if you feel good or feel bad. I think our guys are probably on the feeling pretty bad at the minute as they're about to do a long sort of drawn out sprint. That sort of 30.
That's what we're looking at right now. I mean, they are really starting to kick it.
Yeah.
This is my avatar's not doing the work right. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's only pushing out 300.
Yeah, this is the sprint time.
I believe this looks like almost 200. No, not 200%, but almost getting close.
Yeah, it is. It's 190. Yeah, but 190. So that was just that long drawn out. So I say everybody's going to be happy to see that grey. so
now they got to simulate an actual attack. Scream, Holly says as he's just finishing up. But they got to simulate an actual attack up over the top of that final climb, and then the sprint going into the finish line before today's stage 14 of the Tour de France. Pretty cool setup here out on Zwift. Graham, have you been Zwifting? I don't know I haven't seen you out on Zwift. We're on different time zones from Zwifting, so I'm not super familiar. You guys are down under. I don't cover a lot of the racing or the scene down there. I will this week though. Maybe we could get you actually out on one of the races out there. But I'll be covering the Chop as well as the Kiss Australia race, I believe, this week. But so maybe we'll see you out there. But have you been Zwifting? You've been racing? Like what's your Zwift experience like?
Yeah, so today I did a Zwift session. I did 50 odd K. I had planned on doing the 120K endurance bunch ride, but my alarm was pestering me this morning and I snoozed a little bit. So I joined in mid ride, and then found I had no friends there, so I turned off the ride and did my own thing. But I did a race on Thursday. I attempted a race. It was a bit last minute. I was still in my slippers with a 4-minute countdown, so it was a bit of an issue. And I had heard stories that you need to be ready to go, but they went straight out of the blocks, and I was 15th was about as close as I got to the front, and the first 15 were off the front. And then I didn't realise at the time we finished up the equivalent of Alpe d'Huez. So about 6-7K to go, I realised I'm doing 6 or 7K an hour. And I don't want to ride that much longer, so I turned around and rode back down and had a very amusing 6 or 7 kilometer.
Speaking of climbing and sprinters, nope, see you later. I'm out of here.
Even virtually, you don't like
X. Yeah.
Good stuff, Graham. Well, Graham, what's are you jumping into Cat A, B? Like, where are things at right now? As far as the categories that you're going into, do you know what your FTP would be?
I'm not that advanced. Right, I don't know. I just hit join. I wasn't really sure what I was doing. I was like, I'll do that one. And I was with a friend, good. And I'm like, I got him in, and then I went, oh crap, I've got to get ready, and got myself in, and we were sitting on the start line on the ergo. So I hadn't actually done a race before, so I didn't really know what to expect or how to get joined in, and it was kind of a bit of a shock to the system, and it wasn't really.
So in the racing scene, there's like different categories, right? So for Cat A, it's like if your FTP is 4.0 watts per kilogram or higher right now, you jump into there. If it's for B, it's 3.2 to 4.0. C is 2.5 to 3.2, and then D categories are 2.5 or less, so that everybody has somebody to ride with. And like Zwift Power kind of tracks that, which is a third-party website, and if you're within categories or not, because it like tracks what your results are, it knows how well you're racing. And if you end up over category or under category, it lets you know, and then you know where to jump into. So it's kind of a cool, ZwiftPower.com, really cool program or website that's helping with all the results, and that's where everybody goes for the results and stuff. But, I would really encourage you. I don't know. I think everybody would be really excited to see if we could get you, racing.
You can't hide now.
Yeah, I mean, even in now I'm like calling you out, but I know like in the chop race would be really cool. That's like one of the largest races for down under right now, and they you know what chop racing is, right? I would assume down there in Australia. They told me it's big in Aussie. Maybe I'm wrong. So Wesley Sulzberger and a few others have helped. It was actually Ben Grove who got it going. And then Wesley, who works with Zwift, is now really pushing that. He actually co-commentates with either me or Jesper on the chop racing. And what they do is it's a handicap race. The D's go first, then the C's, then the B's, and then the A's, and they all chase each other essentially. And so any category can win. Then it's a really cool concept. But
okay,
yeah. Maybe cool. love to have you more often is all I'm saying, because it's been a lot of fun so far.
But I do believe that
I do have a small
gold medalist should be.
I do have a small problem when I ride around on the on Zwift when you hit the KOMs. I have in the past I had a small addiction to doing KOMs, so it gets quite painful, my rides. I have done a few last week, I think it was. I did end up having to call for the bucket several times.
Because of those jerseys, those virtual jerseys. I mean, they're addictive. Yeah. They're so addictive.
I know. Yeah, I know. It is a small issue that I have, and I've taken a few KOMs off people around Perth. So I got on to I have gone on to do a ride before. I'm like, oh yeah, do it. I'll just do a nice cruise, and then 2 minutes into my ride, I'm going up a KOM sprinting, and my heart's about to bounce out of my mouth.
I love it. That's so good. That's good stuff. Good stuff. Well, yeah. Let's chat real quick here about the we didn't do our predictions as we usually do during the cool down. We got a little distracted with racing and other things, but let's do them. Predictions on the day. I know you, Steven, were going for a couple of names that I was like, oh, interesting. So we had a couple already come through from yesterday. We can do them again with Graham. I don't know if I don't think I made a prediction. Did I make a prediction? I don't think I even did yesterday.
You usually just wait and Fleeman and then copy him.
Yeah,
but
just copy him. Yeah.
I think I was Alpha Philippe, was I?
Philippe? You said Philippe. That was right. You said Philippe. Graham, do you got a prediction on the day for who's going to take this stage, looking at what we got going on here?
Stephen obviously just went for Sportsbet, what their favourite is. I'm just. I did do a couple of little bets. I'm not a big bettor, but I did a few on. Who was it now? Froome. I picked the Froome, but I think he needs to take time. I'm just trying to open my little page here. I can't remember who I picked now. I picked a few. I like the head. Kruijswijk, Jungels, Dumoulin, Roglic, Froome, and Barguil.
Okay, gotcha.
So you picked everybody, basically.
You just picked everybody. So if you had one, on the day that you're like, this is the one, and there's the only one to pick. Do you got somebody, or you're like, nah, no go here?
I need two, I reckon. I'm going Barguil because he won two stages last year. He hasn't really gone that close to winning yet this year. I think he needs to go on the break. I think a break could win. But then I think Froome needs to take his time on his teammate as well. Be a good position to be in if you're Sky.
So then if it's a break,
Barguil.
you're going Barguil. And if it comes in with the
Yep.
favorites, you're thinking Froome.
Yep. I did
He
pick
might get-
Dumoulin because I think he's going to have a crack too. But yeah,
Yeah, well, he's looking strong, man. But we
better
saw
than
that
that
situation in the Giro where Froome needed time. There was a downhill that he was able to gain it on. Maybe get something similar to that.
yeah.
To that
Well,
today.
he
We'll have
took
to see.
half that time in the downhill, didn't he?
That's right. Nathan, you haven't said yours yet. We want to stick your flag to the mast here. So,
Oh man,
I'm not
I
letting you
got
off
a
with
lot
it.
of okay, hold on. I'm getting a lot of. I'm gonna let chat have theirs first, and then I'll jump in here. So we've got Quentin coming in saying, "Great
ski
stream
jumper
again.
guy.
Well done, Nathan, for getting out of bed. Hey, no worries. I love it. This is a lot of fun. So nice to have you on commentary." Ken says, and Ken said, "Ski jumper guy." What was the name? You totally corrected me yesterday,
Roglic.
Stephen. Roglic.
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 Oh my God, we
Roglic.
have all
There we go.
kinds
It's
of
even better.
pronunciations
There we
here.
go. Ski
It's a
jumper
good one.
guy.
Valverde,
Good work,
I think,
Ken.
is a
That's
good one. I'm going to throw my hat at, I think Nibali is out, so no go. That was what I was going to go with, right? Is he out officially now at this point because of the vertebrae?
Yeah, he's
On a
gone.
broken back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too bad. So that was going to be my
Terrible.
pick on the day, actually. So Ken Howley says Simon Guerin's there. Oh my gosh, you guys. Who's going to get away up that climb and on the downhill? I think Bardet hasn't shown that he can make it happen. Oh, this is a tough one.
I think Valverde is a good bet.
I know, but
Yeah,
he's,
Valverde's
that's a no. Somebody already took it. Somebody already took it. So I got to put my something to the mast here, and I'm just like vastly no. All
Okay.
right, I'm gonna go with James. James, excuse me. I'm gonna go with Jeans. I wanted to go with an outsider, but Andrew, I'll go with you, Valverde. I'm gonna go with Valverde too. I'm with you. I'm with you on Valverde, 100%.
Yeah, Valverde. Yep. It's a perfect finish for him. And, unless he's, undercooking it a bit, it suits him perfect, basically, so, and he's always great to watch as well. But yeah, it's going to be a great stage. Really interesting.
Chad always knows what they're doing.
The way this tour is going, he'll be up for Champs-Élysées.
Yeah. Yeah. Valverde
Man,
actually
great.
started as he was a bunch sprinter in his day. I mean, people don't remember that.
Yes,
He used to. Yeah, he was a bunch sprinter. He would get up in bunch sprints, and I think that's long gone, sort of forgotten now. So, but yeah.
All right, well, thanks a lot, you guys. I appreciate you guys jumping in with us here for this workout. This was some live commentary and coaching on stage 14 of the Grand Tour, virtual Grand Tour, going alongside the Tour de France. I want to thank Graham for jumping in with us. It's really great to have you here. Stephen, as always, thanks a lot for putting the workouts together. If you do want to join the Grand Tour, make sure to head on over to digdeepcoaching.com for a sign up for it. You can still complete the rest of the stages in conjunction with the Tour de France out on Zwift. You can also check out GB Coaching. That is what Graham is up to. Graham Brown has his own coaching business, it looks like, and I did share that in the Facebook post. All right, guys, we will maybe chat it up a little bit on Twitter or the social medias afterwards to see who was right. Hey?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be right.
I don't do social media when the Tour de France is on. No, I'm joking.
Right on, Graham. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everybody, and thanks a lot, Graham and Stephen.
See ya.
We'll see you guys next time.
All right, thank you. See you later.
Cheers. All right, so stage 14 is over. We will see you for stage 15 tomorrow out on Zwift. If you haven't done so already, make sure to hit that follow button on all the places that we are live, that you like to consume the media. If you miss part of this broadcast, you can always catch the VOD over on our YouTube. All of Zwift Community Live's broadcasts are saved over there. As always, thanks a lot to all the viewers and the riders. Great job out there, and ride on.